Welcome to Unity Talks, where the hiring experts of Dallas-based recruiting firm Unity Search engage in lively discussion with successful business leaders to dissect their careers and how they got to where they are today, the obstacles overcome to reach their success, and steps they've taken to stay at the top of their respective fields. So listen in as we provide you with the thought-provoking conversation and ideas that keep industries moving forward.
And welcome back to another edition of the Unity Talks podcast. I'm your host, David Cathy, one of the partners at Unity Search, where we focus on finance, accounting, tax, human resources, and technology for Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. And we're so glad that you're joining us here. Today, we've got a great guest. She is a CFO. Her name is Autumn Ross. She is the CFO of Ewing Automotive Group. Autumn, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. It's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Autumn, this is the first one I've done as a video call. And I told Autumn earlier today, I'm super excited because it's a video call. It's something new. And I'm the guy that when you order at a restaurant, I've got to go through everything on the restaurant menu instead of just the same thing every single time. So I know this will be fun for me, and I hope it's as fun for our listeners and for you, Autumn.
Yes. Thank you so much for accommodating. And Ewing is a very tech-forward company, so this kind of just aligns right with what we try to do here at our auto group. So thank you for flexing with us.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so you were starting to go right there. I was like, yeah, keep going. So tell us a little bit about Ewing Automotive stores, what you focus on, all that good stuff.
Sure, of course. So we are located in Plano, just south of Legacy West on the Dallas North Tollway. We do have 4 franchises. We have Mercedes-Benz, GMC Buick, Subaru, and we have a new franchise, which is actually new to the U.S., which is VinFast. So yeah, we started that in April. We were the first dealer in Texas to have a brick and mortar available for retail to the consumer base. So we were very excited about that. So like I mentioned, we are a very tech forward company.
Mm-hmm.
We are customer centric, tech forward. We try to make the best of everything for our customers and employees. Fun fact, we have a robot. We have 6 robots.
Really?
Yes,
What do they do?
They take parts from our parts departments out to our technicians. So again, improving efficiency, productivity, get our customer vehicles in quicker, our technicians, turning more hours to obviously have a benefit for being an employee here. So we are doing some very interesting things here at our auto group. So,
okay. Does the robot have a name, or the robots, do they have names?
Mm-hmm. So our 2, how can you say this? I guess our 2 original robots. One is Rosie. She was our first.
Okay.
And then M2B2.
Okay.
Off of R2D2, but
Yep.
for Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
So our other stores, I haven't heard their names yet. I think they're probably still in the voting stages. We let our employees vote and have an input on what their names are. So they play Christmas music. They, give them decor on the season. So everyone's really bought in and they really enjoy them.
I love that. I'm willing to bet Rosie is Rosie from the Jetsons.
Yeah, we had to give her some props because she was one of our first. So
okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so I'm super excited. We're going to introduce you a little bit more, but just starting kind of like from where you're from, what mom and dad did, why in the world did you choose the wonderful world of accounting many moons ago? So where are you from, and how did you get into accounting? Did you follow in mom and dad's footsteps?
I did not. So I'm actually from a very small town in East Texas called Winsboro, town about 3,000, maybe pushing 4 now, potentially. So no, did not follow in footsteps. My mom actually worked in a pharmacy, and my dad actually was a truck driver. So there was nothing remotely close to accounting or automotive. The biggest thing that I remember about vehicles growing up is we lived deep into the country, and we had to drive, 8 to 10 minutes to town one way, and we just spent a lot of time in the car. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, there was not a lot of automotive in my growing up. So, falling into automotive out of high school, I fell into well, what am I going to do? And I actually, my very first job in automotive, I sold cars. Well, cars. I sold automobiles. Um, so I will never forget my first sale. It was a 2004 Chevrolet Colorado,
Love it.
golden color. And there was an older couple that took a chance on me and probably saw the terror in my eyes when they walked in. I was like, we'll give her a shot. She's clearly. Um, so yeah, after that, I'm clearly in accounting, so I'm a little bit less on the variable side. So working on
Love it.
commission and all that, it just
Yeah.
didn't go my way. So
So do they train you? Were you one of the people that as soon as the car pulled up, you're like looking out the window or already standing out there waiting for them?
somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't last long. I had to go into the accounting office, so I pivoted very quickly into accounting, and in accounting they threw me into service. From there, I actually went back into variable in a sense. I had to work finance for a little bit, sign up customers, get deals bought. I worked in a smaller dealership, obviously, than Ewing
Hmm.
Auto Group, so. Smaller dealership means you wear more hats, which I was very thankful for because I learned more, had more opportunity to grow at a faster scale. So
Yeah.
it was a blessing all in all.
Well, that's really cool. So one of the things when we chatted is that you have such an unconventional career path, not just career path, but also education. And you and I kind of connect on that because you had to work to put yourself through school, and you started really early, and that developed some work ethic. And so what I'd love for you to do, because I'm going to tie it into what you did yesterday. You were at a career fair yesterday. So what I'd love for you to do is kind of take us through like what you think working through school developed inside of you, and then apply that to one of the odd conversations you had yesterday, and maybe some direction that you would give people who are beginning their career.
Sure. Yeah, my education aligned with my career. And the conventional way is you go, you get your education, you learn, and then you go into industry or whatever may have you. I went in industry first. I knew that in order for me to grow, that I was going to have to get an education. It's from a rural area. I knew if I wanted to, grow out of the area, I needed to, better myself in my education and just spread my wings a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead, obviously worked through, positions at a very fast rate. And that gave me the education I needed to honestly scale through my education quicker and be able to, um, do the full time job and go to school full time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously throwing in, life, you have, marriage and kids
Yeah.
and all of that you have to juggle as well. So kind of through all of those between, your work ethic, your dedication to knowledge and growth, obviously automotive changes, quickly in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep up with that. But then there's also the relationship side of life and work. And, automotive, again, is a very, very deep relationship business. You can meet someone from across the country and, you'll probably connect and know someone mutually.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have to keep that up. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a deep, business acumen. You have to have that thrive for knowledge and growth. So kind of doing all of those three things at once really equipped me better to scale to where I am now. I was in retail automotive. I went to the tech side of automotive and then back to retail. So obviously through all of that, there's additional education, there's additional growth, there's a different type of personality, even that you have to understand and be able to work with. So, yeah, very unconventional. My associates and my bachelor's, I was a single mom, working full time. At one point, I was a group controller over 6 stores. Finishing up my bachelor's, master's, uh, 3 kids during COVID. Straight out of that, started my CPA journey. Um, you know, days that I thought, why in the world am I doing this to myself? And like I kind of mentioned to you, like multitasking is a blessing and a curse that I have, and it's kind of what I feed off of. So, getting up about 4:45, studying for a couple of hours, getting the kids ready for school, going to work all day. Obviously, a very high input role. There's not a lot of breaks. I don't understand what a lunch concept is. Um, Going home, having to really press yourself to give the other end of yourself. That's that relationship and your family and then your personal, conditioning as well. So long days.
Yeah.
The one thing that I can say is it is 1,000% doable. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, you have to be smart, you have to be intelligent, you have to really grasp concepts. But one of the bigger things that I learned, is you have to be dedicated and you have to want to put in the work. And when you do all of those things in combination, it obviously pays off in dividends. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
you're a living testament to that it pays off because you've reached those career goals at a very early age. You're still reaching for other goals. And so it pays off, like we talked about this morning, you and I both having kids when we were in college and, having to work and go to school and manage kids. I can absolutely say I was terrible at it. But I can
I'm sure.
also, well, it was really, your kids having kids, right? You're a kid having a kid, and your life is so different from everybody else that's surrounding you. And but some of the words, these discipline, determination, these D words that you have, discipline and determination, and knowing that you have so much more responsibility on your shoulders, it makes you it forges something inside of you that, whether you know it or not, I really feel like you begin to leverage that for the rest of your career, which you've obviously done. And it's a balancing act. So I'd love to know for you, because whether you're going through that, you're going through school, you have kids and you're working, or you're just working with kids, or you're just working because it's new, you just entered the workforce, there's a juggling act because you have competing priorities. And so even you in your current role right now, you've got multiple people that you have to manage, you've got multiple responsibilities. So, what have you learned in terms of competing priorities and how to manage through that on a day-to-day basis?
I don't think I'll ever 100% have it figured out. It's ever changing. But what I can say is you have to discipline. Again, you have to
Mm-hmm.
be disciplined. But for each person, there are different priorities, depending on the structure of what your life looks like. But what I do personally is I try to think current day, but then I also have to plan for the next day. I have to plan for next week, next month, next year, next 2 years, 3 years. So I have I have an issue with my calendar. I have an issue with notes. Anyone that knows me, I have notes for notes. I have checklist on checklist. So I have, plans that are tangible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have them tangible, and then I also have them in my head. So just being disciplined enough to have that thought process actually somewhere to remind you, to keep you on track. Even down to my 8-year-old plays baseball. That's intertwined into my everyday. It's down to just the smallest things that you need to make a priority, and my days change. Some days my priority is, a specific department at our dealership that I see a need, or someone reaches out to me and says, "Can you help?" Um, Obviously, that's what my focus is for the day. The next day I have planned out, it may change, but at the end of the day, what I always try to do is make sure that that number one priority for that specific day has been at minimum touched on if it hasn't been completed. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think the other thing that you've demonstrated, even with what you just discussed with the competing priorities, you have to have a little bit of flexibility that you've built in to your life, because, we all do this, right? We all go to work and we're like, this is what I'm going to get done today. And within an hour, it's, you realize that's not going to get done today. I've got to take left turns and right turns and stuff like that. And you've learned that flexibility. You learned that flexibility and how to manage through that at a younger age than what most people are forced to learn that once they step into the workforce. And I'm not saying all people go to college and it's just all fun and glory at college. But you were forced to learn it at a younger age, and so you've honed those skills over time to where I think for some people, if you have a 25-year-old and it's like, oh my gosh, my day's shot, and you see the look and the stress on their face and it impacts them, and you being a model for that, they can look at you and say, well, how come she doesn't have that stress look on her face and feel flustered? And you've had so many reps in your life that you've taken and you've learned to adapt. And I think, as leaders of organizations and people, they are always watching you at all times. Whether you know it or not, just know that the eyes are on you. And so you have to do what you say, but you also have to model it, because you are a model. So looking at what you've done in your past and your career history, I think it's important that we have to remember we need to model both in our words and our actions and how we present ourselves to our employees, because that flexibility component can throw people off in their career, especially early on.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and how you manage that from an outward perspective, it definitely has been a learned trait. But in everything you have to pivot, and it's okay that one thing did not get done today. But
Yeah.
as long as you have that as your next day priority and you keep it at the heightened focus, then there's there's nothing to stress about if you have a plan and you have action items to get to that end goal. It's definitely a learned trait.
Yeah.
I was younger, I stressed out about every single little bitty thing.
Mhm.
Uh, my grandmother told me when I was very young, which I unfortunately did not really latch on to this until actually just a few years ago. But don't stress over things that you can't control. So that's one thing that I've also tried to do is not stress over what I can control, but control the controllables.
Yeah.
And you know,
I, I love
everyone can do their potential, but just have to have a plan.
I love the control of controllables. We talk about that often at Unity is, do what you can to the best of your ability. Make sure you've left no rock unturned, and then you can't control it. So you got to move on and start working on something else. And no one expects, we don't expect everybody to be perfect. You may expect that of yourself, and you may let yourself down quite a few times, and you learn over time, as you just indicated, that, I may not be perfect, but working on controlling what you can and executing at your highest capability every single day, even when you don't want to. Because if you don't, you're not climbing at the rate that you wanted to climb or that a listener may want to climb in their career. So I think that's great. I want to segue that into, I want to bounce over to the career fair that you were at, because from a comment that you made earlier, I could tell that you learned something, and for someone that came up at the career fair in your discussion. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I had the benefit of going to a career fair at my alma mater yesterday, and I was honestly overwhelmed with the students that came up and were interested in our group in automotive. So one, it was very an enlightening experience. But there were some interchanging comments between the students, and it's, what is your degree in, what is your plan, what's your path, what are you excited about, what drives you, and unfortunately I got a good amount of time. I was kind of shocked at how many, but it was, well, I don't know. Maybe something will, pop up, and I'm here to get my degree in X. And, I had been like that for a very small amount, right after high school, but I leaped into something very quickly. The students that I were talking to were tenured into their degrees, and I again, back to the planning, back to the discipline and all of that. There's so much opportunity and there's so much knowledge to be had in college, and I just I would hope to share with anyone listening that maybe doesn't have a path, or is kind of going through the motions to get to where they want to be. I would urge everyone to try to find a mentor in your personal life, in your business life, and really try to find what your passion is. To your point of me going into accounting, I started school to be a nurse, and that is far from accounting.
It
But
is.
um, uh, I didn't know at that time, what I wanted to do, but I had a mentor in my life that said, if you don't know what you want to do, this is a great path for you for X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
And so I started that path, and I quickly found out that I'm not passionate about that. And, I was already in the automotive space from an industry career perspective. And, I said, I'm going to have to pivot and change my major to accounting. And, and it's okay if you don't know right off the bat, but just having a path and having someone that can help you with that. I promise you, there are so many people in the business settings, manager levels, executive levels, even peers that would love to just talk through and say, what do you want to do? What's your passion? What do you want to do out of your career? What goals do you want to set? Um, I didn't necessarily have my goal set on being a CFO in automotive when I was straight out of high school, or even straight out of my associate's degree. But as the growth came, as more of that discipline and planning, and to your point, the day to day, that's where things just really start driving, and all of that starts clicking for you. And the biggest thing that I can say in that is just continue driving yourself, because uh, now I can't remember the phrase, of course, now that we're on here, but it's oh man, it was almost there.
It's right on the
Um,
tip. Yeah.
it was there. But something about living your dreams because no one else can do it for you but
Yeah.
you, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
I like that.
And yeah.
Yeah. I think there's so many different things. I'm going to pull at two things that you mentioned within what you just said. One of them is you may not have it mapped out. We're not saying, you got to have your career mapped out when you're 18, 19 years old. You even said it may change, but continue to drive yourself. And, what we've learned with the younger generations coming into the workforce is that they will make more career changes than what the previous generations. Previous generations may make a few job changes, but this generation, and as we get younger, it's conceivable that they will make more career changes. So I started in accounting, and that wasn't for me. And so now I'm going to go do something software developer, and that wasn't for me. And now I'm going to go do something else, and that's okay. But if you're going to make that change, whatever it is, give everything that you have to it to make it work. Don't dip your toe in the water and just see if it's going to work. Give everything that you have. And if after a couple of years it's not working out, then maybe you do make a career change. Just always remember the grass may not always be greener on the other side. And so at some point in time, at least my recommendation is you stick with that one thing and go all in. Don't just go halfway in. You got to go all in. And I think that's really important. I think the other thing that I really liked what you were saying, and I'm going to pull it out of a student environment into a work environment, is, you talk to some students who they don't really know what they want. They're just trying to get a job. And in what they're doing is they're making a presentation of themselves to someone in a leadership position. And so when you are an employee going into your boss's office, and you do want to talk about a review or what does your career path look like, a good leader is going to ask the questions of you. Well, what do you think is a good career path for you? What do you want to do? Why do you want to be on this project? And if you're not prepared for the answers of, well, this is exactly why, here are my 3 reasons, and this is why I think this is going to be good for me and how I will develop, and you're going in there and you say, well, I don't really know. I just feel like I've been doing this for 5 years and I feel like it's about that time. That's probably not what that leader is going to want to hear. So I think what you just said is so important for people to hear early on, because those words of advice you gave should be used throughout someone's career until they decide, hey, I'm going to retire. But they should always be used. And I'd love kind of your thoughts on those 2 specific points I mentioned.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned about projects and employees and, tenure and passion for something, right? So and we keep mentioning the word discipline. That is actually our focus word for the year
Okay.
here at U. And so we have projects. We always have projects, but we have projects, and we have to have people lead those projects, right? Because there's only so many hours and so many people. So we elect committees, and you're exactly right. So in our committee elections, the people that have the passion, have the drive, no matter if they've been here 6 months or 6 years, that piece of them wanting to better themselves through the process, better our company, better our customer experience, from a leadership perspective, that is exactly what we seek when we appoint the people to these specific projects. And I can't say enough about being passionate about what you're doing. I You can ask pretty much anyone that's ever met me. I'm extremely passionate about my job. I love my job. I love automotive. Automotive has changed in the last 5 years. I can't believe 2020 was 5 years ago with COVID,
Yeah,
but
I know.
we're already here.
I know.
So, even as it changes, I'm still extremely passionate about it. And, I think that again is what helped me scale my career was everyone realized how passionate I was, and I was going to give 2,000% every day. And so yeah, on that part. And I'm sorry, the
Well,
second.
I actually want to pause on that real quick because you're touching on something that, man, my business partners and I have talked about a lot recently, and that is, life happens outside of work, and sometimes you can't control it. You're driving to work and there's a car wreck. We're talking about automotive, and that's what pops into my head. But there's a car wreck. Someone hits you, or you're stuck behind a blinking red light, and it's for miles long, and you're going to be late. And so you're coming into work a little bit frustrated. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to face this day. Or you didn't get a good night's sleep because you have kids, right? And they're going crazy, or you got a little baby who's colicky or crying or whatever the case may be. And there's so much stuff that happens outside of work. And so not every single day are you going to feel, I'm going to separate this. You're not going to feel like giving 100%.
Nope.
And you're not going to feel like treating other people a certain way. You just want to kind of go into a cave and do your work with your head down. But you can make a difference between what you feel and how you execute. Because at this point in time in your life, you are a professional. This is your job. If I'm a professional basketball player that we see, and we use sports because sports can be such a great metaphor for the workplace because most people pay attention. They know what basketball is or football is or whatever the case. We'll take Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, the Super Bowl just happened, and he didn't have that great of a game, and the Eagles defense was all over him.
Yep.
But regardless of how he felt, he's got little kids at home and he's not getting a lot of sleep, let's say, he still has to go out there and do his best. On the biggest stage with millions of eyes on him. And we have to do that same thing. Both leaders and organizations have to do that because our eyes are on us. Everybody's eyes are on you. But so do our staff accountants and our senior accountants and our financial analysts and our software developers and our human resource leaders. Just because you feel a certain way, you have to, in my opinion, it's not like you can't tell people about it. It's fine telling people because they are your we'll call it a work family, not your true family. They are a work family. So you can tell, but you also have to compartmentalize and be able to execute on the work that you're supposed to execute on. And I think, you learned that early on, having to manage through school like you did. I just think that's such an important point. I wanted to pause on that for a second.
Yeah, shout out to, Patrick Mahomes, fellow East Texan. So, yeah, man, it is so hard. Oh man, it's hard. And I mean, he does have a newborn baby.
Yeah.
And, it's, I had my second, in December. I was over 6 dealerships. So unfortunately, the calendar does not care that I just had a newborn. And the year end and tax and everything else still has to be done. So, that when you were talking through that, I was like, man, that I still feel that pain.
Yeah.
It was hard, and but you know what? I still had to show up. I still had to execute not only at my normal capacity, but I had to be 3 times what I would on a normal day, because of all the factors that I was having to, execute through. And, and again, there's so much psychology in just interjections with people in automotive specifically because you're dealing with so many different people, retail in general, actually. But, some people and their personality profiles, that I call it a flex. So you have to flex so hard on certain days where other days are easier, to your point. Uh, and that specific time in my life was probably the strongest flex I've ever had to um, work through. And, but at the same time, my thought process was, I am blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I still love the work that I'm doing and the goals that I'm working towards. And, everyone has someone in their life that they also want to, share those wins with. And um,
Yeah.
I'll never forget, my husband came up and he said, "Man," he's like, "You're like Superwoman. Like, how are you doing this?" And I said, "Hey, I've got a job to get done. I've got, my kids as a job, and I've got my job as a job right now, and I'm going to do them both, and I'm going to do them to the best of my ability, because at the end of the day, it still had to get done."
Yeah.
And it wasn't flowers and rainbows, but you know
Yeah.
what, it got done, and at the end of the day, it made me stronger because if you can work through things like that really challenge you on a daily basis, a weekly basis, everything's a season, and you're going to get past and be stronger for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the hubs for the encouragement. It is motivating to hear you talk about some of the things that you talk about, because it's like, I'm sitting here listening to you going, yeah, I mean, I can do this too, and you draw on that. That speaks to mentors and having someone that you can converse with around that, because you get that motivation. You draw on that motivation from them by hearing their story. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. Okay, so normally my last question is, what is one thing that you would leave for the listener to begin tomorrow that they can execute on? I'm going to change it up a little bit, because you are in automotive. And I don't think, even still, 2025, okay, my thought is not like, oh, females in automotive. That's not the first thought. I think of guys in automotive. I think of the mechanics working on the car. And I think anytime I've been to a dealership to buy a vehicle, I did not evidently go to the dealership that you were working at, but it's always been buying from a guy. And so there are fewer women, and that's probably growing in dealerships. So my last question, I'm trying to frame this up properly here. My last question I would say is, what do you see as the positive impacts in females in dealerships, which our listeners should say, strike out dealerships and just say females in leadership?
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a strong question that has to be quick for a wrap up.
I'm testing you right now.
I mean, this is the first thing that comes to mind. The devil's in the details. Not to say anything disrespectful to the male population, but just from different interactions that I've had with women in automotive, the granular level that I have witnessed from other women in this space is it's impressive. It's inspirational. It makes me want to think and work harder towards, enhancing something, or taking something that exists and making sure that, is it existing right? Is there something, it's functioning right, but is it functioning at full capacity? Is it affecting everyone in the process properly? So, it's dedication, it's discipline, it's, mothers, it's, there's just a different, there's a different approach from women and men, right? Just
Agreed. Yep.
in any space, right? So I think you're right. Women in automotive it is growing. Statistically, it is a much smaller percentage than men. We've been able to grow our female population here. In my past, I've worked with female technicians. I actually was able to do an internship, or hold an internship for an amazing person last year. She was a Mercedes certified technician.
Oh, wow.
That's actually going to get her CPA now.
Oh, wow.
And
That's cool.
yeah, I mean, just an amazing individual. And the things that she was able to bring to the table were, just completely intangible, but so, so valuable. So I say that to say, automotive is not just for males, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a growing space. It is a competitive space. It's a space where you have to get in and be dedicated and work and prove yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because statistically, you are kind of the smaller quantity, but it's it's thankfully an industry that it welcomes that.
Mm-hmm.
The manufacturers are recognizing that. Our dealer associations are recognizing that. The individual dealerships, as owners and management, it's definitely an arms wide open approach, and I'm so thankful because if it was any other way, I probably wouldn't be able to be sitting here right now.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so great. It makes me think of two things, and we're going to end on this, okay? It makes me think of loving that because I've got two daughters, and I love females in the workplace. I love females making a name for themselves and how we're moving in the right direction. Whatever the rate of speed it is what it is, but we're moving in the right direction. That's number one. The second thing that I really love is, when you work on a puzzle, it's 1,000 pieces or whatever it is, and you're just staring at that puzzle and you can't find that obvious piece. And then, your spouse or friend or whoever comes over and looks at the puzzle, and within 5 seconds, they got the piece fit.
Yep.
And to me, that's what I heard you say. It's good to have a fresh set of eyes. So, men in automotive, it's been around forever. It's been a man's game for a long time. But anytime you take a fresh set of eyes, and they are really different because, women are, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or whatever that book was way back in the day. It's just a fresh set of eyes. They think different. They look different. They look at things. And so I think that's so helpful to have that other perspective in that business that's been so and still is male dominated, but those statistics are slightly changing. Thanks to people like Autumn, who was our guest today. So Autumn, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great. Like I said, I've been getting a lot of motivation from talking to you, and I really think our listeners will too. So we really appreciate you joining us on Unity Talks podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. And to our listeners, I hope you guys got a lot out of it, just like I did. And until next time.
If you're looking for the next step in your career or the missing piece for your team, Unity Search has you covered. Whether it's finance and accounting, tax services, information technology, or human resources, Unity Search is here for you with experienced and dedicated hiring professionals. Reach out today and take the next step. Unity Search, placing you first.